So legacy point number 3 is this. Your child's worship life begins with you. It begins with you. Now, it probably begins in the formalized setting in church. So that's the first place to think about how you're influencing your child in worship life by bringing them to church.
I served in one congregation for 17 years as the Director of Christian Education and Youth Ministry. And then about 15 years into that ministry there, I decided to look back on those 15 years and the families that I'd been serving with. And I wondered what kind of impact the parents' faith walk had on their kids, and specifically how the parents' worship life impacted the kids' choice to worship. And it was amazing what I found. I discovered that if one or both of the parents were reasonably active in the life of the church in terms of worship, which meant they would worship at least once or twice a month, that their kids all the way through high school continued to worship at least once or twice a month. And they wouldn't always necessarily worship with mom and dad, but they were at church when mom and dad were at church. And the opposite was also true, where the kid was involved in the church because a friend brought them, they got involved in our youth ministry, they learned to love the Lord, etc. By the time they were seniors, if neither parent was active in the life of the church, 85% of those kids were gone. And only 15% of them stayed active in the life of the church. Your example speaks volumes to your children about how important it is to worship God. The other piece of the Deuteronomy 6 now that we talked about from the beginning, you heard the children's voices at the beginning of the session. You heard these words, love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your strength. And then it said these things, these commandments that I give you today are to be upon your hearts. Impress them on your children. Talk about them when you sit at home and when you walk along the road, when you lie down, and when you get up. So worship is not just a formal, planned routine. It's also just living life. When you're driving down the road and you hear a siren, you can pray for the child, or pray for that person with your child as you're driving. You can, before you leave on a trip, you're going on vacation and you're driving out of the driveway and your eyes are open and your hands are moving and Lord, please keep us safe as we go. All sorts of ways that you can demonstrate to your children that life is worship and worship is life.
Yeah. What you're doing is giving your children a worldview. That God is not only part of it, but God is the central focus of what our life is to be lived. Worship events with a 4-year-old, when you're enjoying looking at flowers or working in the garden, wow, look at all those neat colors. I wonder why God made those colors. I bet it's just because he wanted us to enjoy those colors. Isn't God wonderful? I love him. Those kind of moments. Now, what do you do with the more intentional moments, the family devotions? We should have a moment of truth here because there is no such thing as a family that does not struggle with family devotions, especially with 4-year-olds. But worship can happen in the context of the family devotions. Now, what are some keys to having successful family devotions? First of all, and perhaps most important, is being intentional. Now, be intentional and set aside a specific time and place. If you don't, it won't happen. I even write it on the calendar so everyone knows. So my kids are a little bit older. But talk about it and make a plan. It is important enough to plan to set a special time. One family of 4-year-old does this. The alarm clock. They know when the alarm clock in the living room goes off, everything else shuts down and it's family devotion time. But they've made it so fun that the kids actually like to come. Speaking of fun, another good time is dessert time after dinner. And when you have dessert, it's appropriate to say, well, Now that we have this, we're going to also taste and see that the Lord is good. Now, what good things has He done for us today? And you can talk about that or have your special Bible reading and go from there. And you will need to have a special tool that you'll use, such as a picture Bible or a devotional booklet. And you may also take it a little bit further with an activity. Some of the activities that we talked about here that help you simply take time aside and count your blessings and tell God all the things that are wonderful about Him and that you love Him. So now I'd like to ask you to share what are some things that have worked in your home or things that you do to have a devotional life with your children. Let's talk about that now. So Jason and Terry, would you share with us?
One thing that works with us is we use our picture Bible that we got from the 2-year-old session, and we read it at night before we go to bed. And then when we went through the part of creation, our daughter loves to fish, and so the next day we went to the duck pond, and she was so excited that she knew those fish were put there on the 5th day. So she was pretty excited about that.
I find out that when we discuss and read through the picture Bible that those stories come to life a little bit more, maybe for the kids, and it seems like each night they want to maybe read more and more, and so it works really well when we talk to them about the stories that they've read before and maybe relate something in real life that happens on a daily basis or whatever it might be back to what we've read the previous night or in the past. So it really works out pretty neat, and they learn and they grow from doing those kinds of things. So
We've also learned from the picture Bible as parents.
Well, one thing that we've done that really, really worked well with our 8-year-old daughter is we got the felt-backed people, like the story, The Life of Jesus. And it tells the whole story from the time that He's born to the time that He dies and raises again. And so each night then, we just bring out the felt people. And to start, I told the stories. And then after we went through it one session, then now she gets them out, and we let them tell us. They like that hands-on activity of putting it up on the felt board. And so they really enjoyed that.
Memorized where all the images went on the board, even our 3-year-old. And it was amazing to watch him.
He knew if you put it up wrong, no, Daddy.
Yeah, he would know just as much as me sometimes. So, absolutely.
Thanks for sharing. That was really special. So now, your assignment is in your groups, in your small groups, talk about some successes or failures in your attempt to have planned routine in your devotional life with your child. Be open, be honest, and let's learn and grow with each other.